My most authentic self is always there, and my work is not to become the most authentic version of myself, but to remove the obstacles and the blocks that keep me from letting my most authentic self step forward first.
From To Be Magnetic, this is the Expanded Podcast with your host, Lacey Phillips.
And your host, Jessica Gill.
As the leading destination for neural manifestation, we dispel the woo-woo in order to help you create real, tangible results based on neuroplasticity, psychology, epigenetics, and energetics. Our goal is to normalize the practice of manifestation and empower you to get into the driver's seat of your life in order to manifest the experiences, relationships, and things that most align with your authenticity. Part of our manifestation process entails expanding past your limiting subconscious beliefs. Therefore, by tuning into this podcast with interviews from experts, thought leaders, spiritual teachers, scientists, and those with neural manifestation success stories, you're starting the process of expanding your subconscious in order to see to believe that anything you desire is possible. And by pressing play, the process begins.
Welcome back, everyone, to another episode of Expanded. Jessica here. We are in week 6 of the Manifestation Challenge, all about taking aligned action, following our pings. And today, Friday, January the 13th, is Pings Day, where we're encouraging everyone to go out there and follow any pings that have been coming up for them. The manifestations that have been coming through for you guys are so powerful. It honestly warms my heart hearing how much transformation has transpired in these past 6 weeks. Just know it is not too late to join the challenge. We are keeping it open until March, which means even if you start with day 1, you can still be manifesting with us. If you've fallen off, my tip is to not just enter back in wherever you fell off, but also to go out and find accountability buddy. Go into the community group, connect with someone else, share what you're manifesting, and help navigate to make sure you're really getting clear on your blocks. You're understanding your tests and triggers. You're knowing what's a ping, what's not, and what aligned action you can take next so you can be manifesting. And I wanted to share a really good manifestation story with one of the TBM members that I got via DM. She writes, "Man, this challenge is good. So many triggers and tests coming up, but I'm flowing through them with such grace and ease and so much greater consciousness than before I started this work. I'm just calmly holding boundaries, asserting my worth left, right, and center, and feeling so calmly detached from things that used to send me absolutely spiraling. Today, a trigger came up with a new client in the form of an email flagging a contract dispute, and I right away dipped into the trigger DI, wrote a calm and reasonable response that held my boundaries for my high self-worth, and within 4 minutes, I received a response resolving the issue. This work is wildly supportive. Thank you, thank you, thank you." I love messages like this because this is how the work can support you on a regular basis. When you have those moments come up that's questioning your worth, that's questioning what you're really working on, this new subconscious belief of strong self-worth, you can utilize the tools, jump into the DIs, use the journal prompts to support you so you can show up and take that aligned action from that empowered place and manifest the experience in life that you desire. And I almost forgot an update for you guys, since so many of you loved last week's episode with Lacey and I on finding what is blocking your manifestations, and loved the story that I shared about my mom moving through her blocks to manifest selling her home. Update. So she has a really good offer on the table. And one of the things she was very nervous about was the inspection. And they just went through inspection, and it's the most minimal things that they need to update. She is ecstatic. She feels that it's coming through. And for anyone who may be in this boat where the manifestation is just so close, but it's not there yet, My homework to her and my homework to you guys is to double down on your unblocking and expanding. Get expanders all around. And for her, it's not just the expanders on people who have sold homes. It's people that know what to do when they have a big influx of cash. It's people that are in abundant mindsets, all those core blocks of not feeling safe with money. How can she find expansion in that? And I told her to double down on her unblocking work. Any fear or nerves or anxiety turned anticipation about, when is it going to come through? I'm so excited. I feel like it's this, putting so much pressure on it. Lean into the surrender. Feeling worthy DI is great for this. Deservingness DI is great for this. The safe DI is great for this. And any feelings of fear or anxiety, you can utilize those DIs as well. But lean into that sense of you are good no matter what. This will connect with you. It's this or something better. And you are safe no matter what. Lean into that feeling when you feel so close on the cusp of your manifestation. Today, we have a really powerful process episode with Holly Conti that really, really explains the mindset of someone who just manifested a 7-figure year in their business. This is someone who had a lot of low self-worth around being an entrepreneur, being a leader. She was even told by one of her old bosses that it seemed like she wasn't very ambitious. And now this year, she just passed 7 figures in her business. It is such a powerful story of moving through lack, dealing with really difficult dynamics from childhood around parenting, sense of belonging, and being able to manifest from a place that is fully authentic and aligned, and how she went through her money mindset map, which we're going to talk about in the episode, to unblock that lack mentality and start manifesting from a place of high self-worth. This is going to be such a powerful episode. I'm telling you guys, even the full circle that last year at the challenge, she wanted to manifest her 7-figure business and be around 7 and 8-figure business entrepreneurs. And now when she recorded this podcast, she not only manifested that in her business, but is at a retreat with 7 and 8-figure female entrepreneurs. It is just mind-blowing. So just think about what you can call in over the next year through this challenge. Nothing's off limits. Sky's the limit. You guys got this, and enjoy.
And now a word from our partners.
So you know how much we love the Seed Symbiotic, the pre and probiotic combo here at TBM Magnetic. But I wanted to talk a little bit about the science in probiotics. So a lot of times you hear kombucha, kimchi, fermented foods. If you're eating that, then you're getting enough probiotic. But the truth is you really need a regular quality probiotic in order to have the most diverse, good gut bacteria to help balance your stomach microbiome. Learning the science behind all things is a huge passion of mine. And so I've been deep diving into the Seed University of all of their education and science that they have behind their product. They're the most science-backed research probiotic I've found on the market. And what I really love about it is I'm someone who has struggled with gut issues and digestive issues and stress issues pretty much my whole life. And so having a high quality probiotic is a non-negotiable. I've taken 1,000,001 different kinds of probiotics on the market, and none of them really pack the punch and seem to be doing an impact that kept me consistent until Seed. Because Seed created their VitaCap, which is a capsule that their pre and probiotic live in, it was scientifically engineered to survive stomach acid, bile, salts, enzyme, to get 100% of everything that's in the capsule to the right part of your digestive system and populate with good bacteria. It has been so helpful for me. I will not go anywhere without it. It is the first thing I do when I get up in the morning with my cup of lemon water. And I highly recommend it to anyone who is looking to support their GI function, skin health, heart health, gut, immune, gut barrier integrity, or anyone that just really has digestive issues. There's so many things that need to be in homeostasis in order for that to be supportive. And this is the foundation of what is going to set you up for good gut health overall. And so exciting, we've been partnering with Seed for so long that they've increased the discount for you guys. Use the code TBM20 to receive 20% off your first month of Seed's Daily Symbiotic. I am so excited for you guys to try this out. It's been a game changer in my gut health, and I know it will be for yours as well. You can check the link in the show note or go to seed.com/TBM. As you guys know, we are huge fans of Beekeepers Natural over here at To Be Magnetic. The propolis throat spray is on lock with me wherever I go 24/7, just helping to boost my immune. They are an all organic, natural bee products company that really helps support our brain, gut, health, immune, etc. One product I've been leaning on a ton as we've been gearing up for a brand new launch for the To Be Magnetic community is their Royal Jelly Brain Fuel. So oftentimes when I'm in states of intense stress, my brain is so active during the night that I have a hard time falling into deep REM sleep. And whenever that happens, I know I'm going to wake up with brain fog. And one of the best, cleanest ways I've found to clear brain fog is with this Royal Jelly Brain Fuel. It is a proprietary potent blend of royal jelly and adaptogens that really help cognitive function. So as you might remember from my episode with founder Carly Stein, royal jelly is an incredible brain food. It helps support the brain in neurogenesis, which is creating new neurons. It's clearing out the old ones and bringing in new ones. They also have Bacopa monnieri in there, which is an adaptogenic herb that enhances brain function, supporting the brain's ability to learn and retain information. And they also have ginkgo biloba, which is another herb that boosts blood flow to the brain and helps with learning, focus, and memory. So all of these things together work as a powerhouse to support your brain in a way that doesn't give you jitters. You're not shaky, whereas like some other brain fuels will add that to you, especially if they have caffeine in them. This is just a very clean way to enhance your mental clarity and focus. And so what I'll do is when I wake up with that brain fog, there are little vials, there are 6 in a package. I'll take maybe a third to a half little sip of them and then have my regular morning routine, breakfast, food, etc. And within a half hour already, I notice an immediate difference. It's like a strong alertness, a feeling like the brain fog has completely subsided, and I'm able to power through the day with flow and confidence. And the other thing I love, like all other Beekeepers Natural products, this is made with completely clean ingredients. Keto, paleo, gluten-free, natural, third-party tested, no artificial colors, preservatives, fillers, alcohol, gluten, GMOs, pesticide, refined sugars. It is completely clean. It is the best way to support your brain, especially on those days when you have a lot of stress or maybe you didn't get the rest that you needed, and really helps to reset you and completely change your day ahead. So if you want to try out the Royal Jelly Brain Fuel or any other Beekeepers Natural products, you can use the code TBM to get 25% off your first order. That's TBM for 25% off your first order. Or you can go to beekeepersnaturals.com and use the code TBM to get 25% off your first order.
All right, on to the episode.
I am so excited to be sitting here with Holly Conti, a Pathway member who has manifested such incredible stuff. I'm looking at your list right now and just going to run through it for some expansion for everyone. This episode's going to be airing in the new year, so some expansion for everyone in 2023. She hired her first senior level position at her company, a salary that was close to hers, so it felt like a risk. Earned an extra $20,000 a month for her business, ensuring her company was profitable again by gaining 2 new clients, increased her take-home income, celebrated her sister's wedding without any shadow, started a business in the same time with her husband and making their first $5,000 from that business, financial freedom, working on it every day, and fully designed and decorated home office, plus many, many more other manifestations. Welcome, Holly.
Thanks, Jessica. Oh my gosh, I can't believe I didn't even add that we hit our first 7 figures as well in 2022 in my business. So that's like a big
Yes.
one.
So exciting. So, as you know, we kick off with our sun, moon, and rising sign. So, what is yours?
Yes, I am a Taurus sun, a Leo moon, and a Scorpio rising.
Ooh, okay, cool. So, how do you feel like that presents for you?
You know what's funny is I love anything self-discovery, any tool that I can use to understand myself better and to know who I am better. I love it. Like I love Enneagram and Ayurveda and Myers-Briggs, Strengths Finders, like all of the personality tests, like I'll do them all. And however, with astrology, I haven't actually gotten into astrology except in the last year. And now I love astrology and I'm really into it. And I was starting to think about why is that? Like, why have I pushed astrology to the side? Why haven't I, resonated with it? And I realized I was reflecting a couple months ago that both my sun, moon, and my Scorpio rising all had major aspects of my shadow.
Wow.
The Taurus is a bull and known as being, bullish and stubborn and maybe sometimes lazy, which no one ever wants to be considered with those things or, paired with those things. And then the Leo especially, Leos are very creative, which is something I very much resonate with, but they also, love a stage. And I used to have so much shadow around being seen. And it hasn't really even been until the last year that I've really stepped into being comfortable being seen, being okay with being seen, and owning the fact that sometimes I do like a stage and that's okay. That's something I've had a lot of baggage around as a kid. And then the Scorpio, I read something, the Scorpio rising, I read that that's very conniving and, or, like can be like mischievous but I'm also really strategic. So it's interesting that I realized like, oh, those shadow words aren't shadows that own me anymore or shadows that I worry about or resonate with anymore, but they used to be. And I think once I was able to release some of that stuff, I was able to let astrology kind of come into my life and help me. I love astrology now.
That's really interesting. I think for anyone out there noting if you don't resonate with certain aspects of your astrology, is there a shadow in that? I can definitely relate because I have Cancer rising, and a lot of things you hear about is like so emotional, like crying all the time, very shy. And I'm pretty outgoing, I think, like I'm willing to put myself out there, but it's the balance of the other two pieces. And it wasn't until I was like, wait, I love that I'm so emotional. I feel everything. And that's my superpower in a weird way, So it's recontextualizing those things that maybe you once paired as shadowy to another part of your strength. And I like how you moved conniving to strategic.
Yeah, I like that better.
And what is your cultural background and upbringing, and how has it informed who you are today?
Yeah, I grew up in upstate New York from a white, middle class, pretty average family. And I had a really happy, beautiful, really wonderful childhood in many ways. I lived with my mom and my stepdad, whom I call dad, and my 3 half siblings, who most people wouldn't know that they're my half siblings, but they are. And I had a really wonderful life filled with lots of love growing up. But then I also had this side part to my life that a lot of people really didn't know about. I had my biological father and my complicated relationship with him. And he lived about an hour and a half away from where I lived in upstate with my family. And I saw him on the holidays and sometimes on weekends. And I always knew he loved me. I very much knew that, but he was an unhealed person in himself and was not able to love me in the way that I needed as a kid. He was very critical and spoke on my appearance often and told me that I wasn't smart often. I remember him telling me, "You're a follower, not a leader."
Ooh.
And when I look back at that, I'm like, yeah, of course I was a follower. I had no choice when I was around you, because when I was in his space, I existed to make him happy and to make him comfortable. And that meant maybe being uncomfortable myself or not being able to speak my needs. And then he programmed in me that I wasn't smart and that maybe I needed improvements to my physical appearance to be loved. So that was really hard because I had on one end this really supportive, my mom is the most supportive and loving and encouraging person. My siblings are everything to me. We have a wonderful, beautiful relationship. And my stepdad, I call him dad, and he raised me since I was 4, and he loved me very much. And I always felt connected there. And yet I had this like weird thing on the side that took me a long time to understand and to get in front of.
It's interesting that you say, oh, I had this beautiful childhood, but then there was this other thing that happened. And I think probably a lot of people out there can relate to feeling like, well, I have really good memories of childhood, everything was great. But when you start to peel it back and recognize you may have had all of your needs met in a lot of different ways, but were there things for your authentic child self that maybe wasn't met? Were your emotional needs met in all of your parental relationships? And it sounds like with your biological father, those needs weren't really getting met. And that's kind of another layer where we can start to think about where our programming and blocks live. Yeah, everything might have felt great and there wasn't any major traumas, so to speak. But when you have those dynamics, those emotional wounds, those can be just as traumatic, if not more, than other situations for people too.
Yeah, I really had to embrace that. I think in my 20s, I started to realize, because I would always excuse things. Oh, well, but I didn't have this experience, or I didn't have this horrible experience, the really physical things that you hear about or that you see portrayed in movies as trauma. But not having your needs met as a young kid by the people who are supposed to meet your needs, it's subtle and it's more in the background, but it very much cuts to your core. And some of the work that I've been doing, I think most of the work that I've done in my adult life has been around that relationship with my biological dad. But then this last year, because I'm healed at that point with that relationship, or at least, I'm at a really good space with it, this last year has been about looking at the positive family support system that I had, and still even going deeper at what those experiences imprinted in me. I also had things to unpack and rework in those relationships with my mom and my stepdad that I wasn't even at a point where I could address those until like the trauma with my biological dad had been addressed and healed in a way.
Yeah, I think that's such a good point too, is like you can have a really positive experience with a parent and they could have done like all the right things, but we're all humans healing in this lifetime, in this journey. So there's going to be some aspects that probably didn't feel good or align with you. And it's so important to go back and heal that inner child version that experienced it.
Yeah, it's funny because I was in a DI and I had this reflection, and then I was talking to my mom about it 2 days later, and she brought it up before I did. It was wild. I have my core wound. I have 2 of them, but one of them is I don't belong, because it was really weird because from the outside, people didn't know that I wasn't fully my parents' child. I looked as if I was, their full child, just like my other 3 younger siblings, but I wasn't. And I always had this feeling of that I didn't fully belong. And especially with my stepdad, whom I love wholeheartedly and completely, and who loves me wholeheartedly and completely, I always felt like this distance of like, but I'm not really his kid. And I was always afraid and fearful of that. And I realized that what my mom did is, the way that she made me feel like I belonged in the family was, no question, didn't talk about the fact that I had another father and that I had other experiences that my siblings and my mom and my stepdad couldn't understand. Her way of dealing with it and her way of what she thought was to help me feel like I belonged was to not talk about it. But what that did was make me feel like an outsider within my family system because nobody actually knew. And it wasn't until I think I was older that I started telling my siblings some of the things that my biological father would say to me and do to me.
And it almost, because it's like, oh, let's not talk about it. In a way, it becomes a shadowy part. It's like we don't talk about it because it's not good to talk about. And if we talk about it, then, ooh, yeah, bad feelings are going to come up.
Exactly. And it was pretty inspiring. And I was sharing with her vulnerably that I had that feeling of not belonging. And she said, I didn't talk about it much. And I said, that's interesting because I just journaled about that a couple days ago.
Wow.
Yeah.
Wow. So powerful. I mean, there's just so many layers in the parental modeling and all of that. And you kind of just said, I was going to ask you too, but did you feel like you had support from your mom and stepdad and that part of the family from some of the, emotionally abusive things your biological dad was saying?
I think that my mom knew that he had that to him. I think she was always afraid of that. And she definitely countered it with all of her love and positivity. So I did feel supported. And that's what's so funny. Nothing is binary, right? Like, it's not like, oh, I had this bad childhood. It's like I had this really good thing and this really bad thing. And I feel like I'm straddling both sides of my life. So when I was a kid, when I think about my inner child, anytime I'm in a DI or I'm doing the work and I'm thinking about my inner child, my most happiest, most aligned, authentic self is in my childhood backyard, which was all wooded. We had no neighbors, and I'm walking around barefoot, talking to myself and singing to myself and just creating and just being in my space. I'm in nature. I'm with my creativity. I'm with my thoughts. And that is my most healed and authentic version of who I am. And that was in my house with my mom and my stepdad. And throughout my life, walking around nature and talking to myself is, I think, the most authentic version of who I am. And I remember when my family and I moved to the suburbs when I was about 14 from our more rural area, my mom got a call from the neighbor and she said, "Oh, I see Holly's walking around the neighborhood talking to herself." And my mom told me that. And I remember you think that a 14-year-old would be embarrassed by that. But I laughed and I thought like, oh yeah, that's me. That's who I am. And then I remember just a couple of days ago, actually, I was walking around my neighborhood now. Sometimes I walk in the woods by my house, but this particular moment, I was just walking around my neighborhood and I was having this moment of just walking around, kind of talking to myself. And it struck me like, oh, wait, this is me. This is authentic Holly. This is my authentic self. And in that moment, I realized, wow, she's always there. My most authentic self is always there. And my work is not to become the most authentic version of myself, not to become something, but to remove the obstacles and the blocks that keep me from stepping forward with my most authentic self and from letting her be in the forefront, because she's always here. But this work really for me has been about unveiling that and letting my most authentic self step forward first.
I love that so much. That is so, so true. Just one thing for people to think about too is when you have those moments where you connect with your authentic self, you're in, you're Holly walking in the woods, talking to herself in full joy and excitement. If in the next moment you're feeling a difficult emotion, your authentic self didn't leave you. She's still there too.
Yeah.
That I think is so key, and knowing that it is going to be these snippets and these pieces of moments. And when you have moments where you don't feel good, that's okay. Like, you haven't completely abandoned yourself too. You can be authentic and feel sad. You can be authentic and feel suppressed. That authenticity is still within you. It's just healing it and allowing it to come out more and more.
Yeah. It's not something to become. It's something that you are.
Yes. So well said. Okay. So talk about your TBM journey. What was on your list? You've been doing this work for many years, but the unblocking challenge that we had last June really kicked things into high gear for you. So kind of paint the picture where you were at around that time and what your intention was going forward during those next 6 to 12 months, as we say.
Yeah, definitely. I think that the unblocking challenge was the cherry on the top of about 3 years of deep up-leveling. So I found Lacey's work and had been reading her blogs for a couple of years. It was around 2018 where I was working at a marketing agency, and it had been a job that I had manifested. Like there was one time that a couple of years before that, I'd been there for 2 years. I had 100% manifested this job, and I thought it was everything that I wanted. And right around 2018, I'd been at that company for 2 years, and it started to become something that was no longer suiting me. So at the time, I thought the company was really aligned with my values, and it was. But the people around me, I didn't have expansion. The people around me, my leaders, although they were values aligned in many ways, they didn't lean into their ambition, especially the women around me. The women in that job were all almost supporting roles of the other leaders who were mostly men in that company. So although the company was values aligned and I liked the work, it was marketing and I love marketing and that's still what I do, it wasn't fulfilling me anymore. But it was 2018 and I was manifesting having my first baby. And something happened where all of a sudden that job that I had manifested became a bridge job for me. Because the company that I was at, well, I thought it was great at the time. I realize now that it wasn't, but they had a good policy for maternity leave and for being able to bring your child to work with you after you have your baby. And so I thought, okay, I'm going to stay here in this job that's no longer serving me, but is still, it's a safe place. It's not toxic in any ways. Emotionally, I feel like I'm being taken care of. It's not at the level that I want to be anymore. It's not feeding my ambition. It's not exciting me. And I know that I can do more and I want to be more. But right now, this is a good place for me to stay while I have my baby. So I'm going to stay here for a year while I do that. That's when, in that year, I was just focused on myself. I didn't focus on business or career really at all. It was just about my journey of pregnancy, my journey of having my baby. And it was a beautiful, wonderful experience. And that was in, I think, March of 2019. And after I had my daughter, I had my 3 months of maternity leave, which not all of it was paid, and that was hard. The job that I was at was actually a pretty low-paying job. And during that time, I had found out that the people that had the same roles that I had and even had been there for a shorter amount of time were one of them was making $15,000 more than me doing my exact same job.
Oh, wow.
And that's when I was like, no, I can't do this anymore. I had always, going back to my upbringing with my dad, I had never felt like I was good enough or smart enough for real wealth or real leadership roles, or I settled a lot. And I think that was the last cusp of me settling. I think like it was in that job that I realized I am done settling. I'm not going to settle for being paid less than I should be or being told that I can't be more than I want to be. Like I remember one of the men in the company, at one point, he called me out as being not ambitious. And I was so offended because I am so ambitious, and I always have been, but I think it goes back to my dad telling me that I'm a follower, not a leader. It's like, I didn't feel safe enough to let my ambition or my leadership or my want to grow my career. I didn't feel ready or safe to let those parts of me come forward. And so I was always just aligning with other people and kind of playing it small and settling for way less than I deserved. And so it was then that once I had my baby and I had returned back to work, I had decided like, okay, I'm ready. I'm going to look for another job. And so it was the summer there, and it was kind of like summer, June 2019. I decided I was going to leave my job. I applied for a job. I was in kind of the final rounds of the application process of this one job, and I quit my job before I even got this new one. I had decided like I'm leaving and I'm going to make it work. So I did, and I left. And a couple of days later, I got the offer for this job that I thought was exactly what I wanted. I had increased my salary by 30% by taking this new role. My list at that time was that I wanted to work still with a values-aligned company. It's really important for me to work with impact-driven businesses. And I wanted to work remotely because I knew that as a working parent, I wanted the flexibility of working remotely. So those were the two big things on my list. And I wanted a big financial gain, and I wanted more leadership and more responsibility. So I was kind of the second person kind of in command at this business. I was their first full-time hire, which is funny because then that's what happened right afterward as well. So I had increased my salary by 30%. I had left my job before they even had offered me this one. And I thought it was the perfect scenario. It turned out it was a super toxic place. So I was there for 6 months, and it was the hardest 6 months of my professional career so far. I didn't feel respected by her, and I didn't feel comfortable and confident to share my point of view and my voice with her. It wasn't a safe place for me. And though we were doing cool things, like we were doing all of this marketing stuff, I was like going just so much deeper into the marketing and business world with her. And I think she was a major test and a major expander for me, because up until then, the women in my life had mostly been stay-at-home moms. And so my mom and the women in my life had taught me what it meant to be a woman from the state of being a caregiver and being great at relationships and being empathetic and feminine. But I hadn't seen what it was like to be a woman and be in your power. I hadn't seen what it was like to be a woman who had a really successful business, and she was at the forefront. Her husband worked for her, and she was like leading the charge of this 7-figure earning business, and she had huge ambitious goals. So she was a major expander, but her and I didn't align. When I took that job, it was really hard and testing me a lot. And at the same time, I also had something else going on the side. So at the agency that I had worked at previously, I had met a person named Caitlin. I'll share her name. She's now my business partner, but I had met her. We worked together at the agency. And she was actually the one who even started the conversation that led me to find out that I was earning less than everyone else, because she had a hunch that I was. And so she just walked around and started asking people what they were making, and they told her. She kind of opened the door for me to realize that, wait, I should be making more money too. So the same time that I left the agency, she had left the agency and started her own business. And she was asking me to come along with her. And I kept saying, no, I can't. It's too scary. It's unstable. I need something that's more secure. And that's why instead of going with Caitlin, I went with this other woman. It was 6 months that were so hard. I was working 14-hour days. We were in the middle of launching a new product that launch ended up being really successful. And I learned a lot about marketing from it. But ultimately, this person and she didn't allow me to be my authentic self. I didn't feel safe to be my authentic self in her space. And I remember it was January 8th, and we were in the throes of a launch, and a huge mistake happened. And she freaked, and it was my fault, and I'll own that. But it was in that moment that I thought, I can't do this. I don't feel aligned. I don't feel respected. I'm working too much, and that's why I made this mistake, and I can't do it. And so it was in that moment that I called Caitlin, and this was January 2020. And I said, okay, I'm ready. I'm ready to come over with you to your business. And so Caitlin was going to hire me to be her first full-time employee. And so we had a couple of conversations, and she said, okay, what's your number? And I told her, and she said, okay, let me think about it. And then she texted me and said, okay, I've got it. I'm ready. I'm ready to do it. That number sounds good to me. Let's go. And she sent me my offer letter. And then the offer letter was $1,000 less than I had asked for. And so in that moment, I was like, okay, again, I have to put myself out there vulnerably. I have to ask for what I want to get. And so I called her and said, hey, you said that price worked, but this was actually the price that I had said, not the one that you have on this offer letter. And she laughed and said, "Oh my gosh, that's a mistake. Okay, we're good. We're all set." And it was then that I came over to her business. And that business is now the business that I co-own with her. So she brought me over in January. We ended up that year tripling her business's revenue from the year before.
Wow.
I became her partner, and now we have 8 employees, and we hit our 7 figures this year, and we're consistently growing, and I just can't believe how far we've come.
Okay, there's so much I want to pull apart in there. So one thing I just want to, kind of stick out in people's minds here is this jump that you've had between, okay, I'm going to leave this job that is no longer aligned, the initial marketing one. And then you have this moment where you're like, okay, I've manifested exactly what I wrote down on my list. I had an opportunity to go a different direction, but it didn't feel like I was ready to jump off. Let's call it jumping off the cliff, right? Because it's a risk. It's a brand new way to go. Not having the stability of a bigger company. It's a risk with a brand new founder, all of those things. So you take the job that does match your manifestations, but this is where it's so important to move through, we call them like bridge tests, is where they are bridging exactly what you need to learn and pick up to bolster your trust muscle, your skill set, your expansion, so you can move on to that next step and actually jump off the next cliff. Even though it was a bad situation, toxic situation, I'm sure you learned a lot in that situation that helped you for the next thing. I would bet if you would have said yes to Caitlin when she first asked, you would have had to learn those hard lessons anyways.
Yeah.
There would have been some other ways that you would have had to learn those lessons. And just one piece of advice for anyone who thinks, oh my gosh, I think I'm in a bridge test situation, like I'm expanding in some ways, but I know this is not aligned at all and I need to get out. I call it cleaning up your side of the street. Think about all the biggest triggers in that moment and how can you start to process through them so the next thing that you manifest into does not have that reflecting back to you.
That's so true. I wouldn't change it because what I learned in those 6 months is what allowed me to be successful when I went over with Caitlin. But the difference is they were almost 2 really identical positions, but it was the difference between one person was expanding me, but not safe for me. Whereas the other person, because I was still up leveling and just starting to get to a point where I was owning my voice and owning my leadership and most, authentically showing up how I wanted to, she provided the safety and security that I needed to step into that. So I needed, over on the side with the other job, I needed to experience all of the marketing pieces there. And I think I needed her expansion because she really was building an incredible business from a financial standpoint. But ultimately, what I needed to learn there was only ever going to be short term because I didn't feel like I could be my most authentic self there. And I needed to learn that, I think, quickly. I'm glad I did learn it quickly.
Absolutely.
So I'm quickly interrupting this episode to invite you, if you're ready to start your manifestation journey, or if anything you've heard in our manifestation episodes has piqued your interest to begin. We have a la carte workshops in everything from the basics bundle, which is what we recommend to everyone who starts. It's the formula that actually teaches you how to manifest, unblocked inner child, and unblocked shadow. We also have a la carte workshops on love and money. But the real gem is the Pathway membership because it encompasses every single workshop we have. It's a year-long membership with full access to the few a la carte offerings we have and exclusive workshops not available anywhere else, such as the daily practice, which is what everybody in the Pathway uses, hopefully at least 3 times a week to daily in order to truly create the new neural pathways that one needs in order to manifest, and houses the library of our deep imaginings, which is our unique hypnosis process that allows you to get into your subconscious and overwrite those old neural pathways, creating the new ones. You can use our special code, EXPANDED, all caps, EXPANDED, to receive $20 off your first a la carte workshop purchase or $20 off your first month of the pathway. Again, that's all caps, expanded, EXPANDED. Okay, now back to the episode.
Talk a little bit about your magnetic money path and walk us through that, because I think one theme I'm hearing through this is like you really needed to find expansion and step into your own sort of entrepreneurial state and mindset. You're very aspirational. You really wanted to see women being like the matriarch of their families and be able to provide and have success in business and be a mom at the same time. So how did you utilize this authentic money path or the magnetic money path to get you there?
Yeah, the magnetic money path is something that I came up with actually this year, and it was to help me understand how my core wounds were manifesting my experiences if I let them. So it's often, I know how, in the TBM work, you and Lacey talk about you manifest from your subconscious. And if your subconscious isn't healed, then you're manifesting from that lower self-worth or that blocked, limited belief state of mind. And so for me, my core wounds were I don't belong and I am not smart. And so I thought, if I'm operating and making decisions about how I spend my time and my money and my resources from those places, then where I end up is not aligned with my most authentic needs and wants and desires. So I kind of mapped it out where it was like, if I don't belong and I am not smart, I think that only other people know what's best for me. And so I make decisions based on their priorities and their agenda items. I don't even feel confident that I know what I need most, or I know what I need best, or where I want to spend my time or my money. So if only other people know what's best for me, then my worth lies in what I do for others. And if I feel like I don't belong, then I align myself with others to make myself feel like I belong. And so then I'm doing what they want me to do. I'm spending my money on what they want me to spend. So then if I do that, then I give my time and my money to others. My needs come last, and then I am financially and energetically drained and depleted. So when I don't belong, I align with others and do what they want me to do. If I'm not smart enough, then I don't feel confident in making my own decisions. So I do what other people want me to do. Then my needs come last, my priorities come last, and I am drained at the end of it. And that has played out in so many different instances, from the vacations that I choose to go on to how I spend, my free time. And so that was kind of, I call it my magnetic money path, and that's the unmagnetic version. But then if I look at it from the magnetic version, I think I belong to me. I am worthy of this life. If those are the two beliefs that I'm starting with, if I am worthy and if I belong, then I'm clear on what I want. I can make the decisions that are most aligned with what I need and want. I choose to prioritize my needs. I commit to what I need most, and then my money grows, my time grows, my energy grows, and I feel more whole.
So powerful. And I love how you mapped it out. And if you don't mind, if we could link the photo of it in the show notes, because I think it just so clearly shows the path that could be so expansive for others.
Yeah, absolutely. No problem.
Yeah. So, okay, we'll link it in the show notes for you guys so you can kind of see the trajectory. But it's a really interesting exercise for you guys listening in to do. Think about, okay, if you think of your biggest blocks, your biggest core wounds, your biggest limiting beliefs in relation to what you're calling in, start to track, okay, well, if that's what I believe, what actions am I taking? What other situations am I putting myself in that is reinforcing that belief? And then almost work backwards. Okay, well, if this is my goal, how do I get back to the belief that's going to get me closer to the goal?
Yeah. And I don't even have to reference that anymore, because I just know. Something that I tell myself is it's okay for other people to be uncomfortable for me to get what I want. I've always been a people pleaser, and my whole life, I would make myself uncomfortable. I would bend myself into pretzels, into molds, into other people's idea of what I should do or what I should want or how I should spend my time and my money. And I started realizing in the last, 2 years or so, wait, it's okay for me to put my priorities first sometimes, even if that means that I'm uncomfortable. And even the simplest things like your husband or your boyfriend deciding what you want to do for dinner. Like, I know that there's this story that women never know what they want for dinner and never can decide what they want, right? And it's like, yeah, or they know what they want, but they're worried that the person that they're trying to have the conversation with doesn't want the same thing. And so they're just trying to default to that person.
That is such a good point. And that's one thing that I'm so thankful my partner will check me on is when he'll ask like simple things. Where do you want to get coffee? What do you want to have for dinner? And I'll be like, I don't care. What do you want? And he'll be like, no, you always have a preference. What do you want? And he'll kind of give me space to like, just give me an option to think about my needs. Cause I'm so used to just, no, whatever, it's cool, whatever, it's fine. And leaning into, wait, I do have preferences. There are things I want more than others in this, and I'm allowed to feel that.
Yeah. And even if it's not exactly what he wants, it's okay for you to have what you want this time.
100%.
Mm-hmm.
So touch in a little bit on when you started having big tests. You were calling in this big up level in the company, trying to get, $20K more a month for the company. You had some massive tests that were stacking up around this time. So what was coming through in some of these tests?
So I now co-own a PR and marketing agency with Caitlin, whom I mentioned, and our mission is to help underrepresented leaders be seen and sought after so that they can reclaim their power and rewrite the human story. So it's a big mission, right? We're working with women, LGBTQ plus leaders and business owners who are trying to share their story. Our whole thing is to get people seen in the media because right now we know that less than 36% of the sources quoted in the media are women. And most of them are white women and cis and straight women. And so we're trying to shift who has money and who has power. And that starts with who's heard in the media, who's heard in different public spaces. So it's a big mission. And we have been now doing this since 2020. She's been doing it since 2019. And every year we have tripled or more our revenue. And this year, going into 2022, our goal was big. At the time, I think we had 4 or 5 employees. We're like, we're going to hit our first 7 figures. We're going to do it this year. We think we can do it. And that meant that we would have to triple our revenue from 2021. And at the start of 2022, I think things were moving pretty smoothly. Everything was going as it should, as planned. And then basically between March and July of this year, it was the hardest we've ever worked in our business. It was the most, I think, tests we've ever had in our business. And we were really, we had several months where we weren't profitable, which is something that we hadn't experienced yet, which was really scary and was a lot of emotional tests.
So the stakes are pretty freaking high at this point. You're manifesting this huge up level in the business, hitting your 7 figures, and your business advisor is like, you're not profiting and you might even have to fire people. How did you guys move through this?
Yeah, that was so scary because we also knew that we needed people in order to grow. Caitlin and I couldn't grow ourselves without our team. Also, it's really important to us, going back to our mission, it's really important to us that even our team members feel secure and safe in their positions and are empowered in their voices to lead and be seen and be heard. So the whole thing, we're so tested in that space of, okay, what do we do to make money? And luckily, we can get pretty scrappy, and we've gotten pretty scrappy. So in March, we had seen our projections, and we thought, okay, we really need to make some moves. And so her and I spent some time on the phone, and we spent probably a couple of weeks working through a new offer that we thought was going to be it. We thought, this is the offer that our audience wants. We thought it was so good. We were so excited. We're like, this is awesome. This is going to be so great. People are going to love it. And we put it out to our list, and it was absolute crickets. Not one person engaged with it, which is not something that usually happens with us. Again, it was the end of March, and we were supposed to have made these strides forward, knowing that our projections were looking scary. And now we're closer to those dates where our projections are looking scary, and we haven't made any progress. So we got with our business coaches. They kept coaching us, okay, you have to go back to the drawing board, go back to your audience. And it was there that we really we started surveying our audience. What do you want to know from us? How can we help you the most? And we went back to the drawing board and created something new. And this was right when the unblocking challenge started. It was finally June 1st. And I was on a hike on my morning walk before work. And, we had a conversation with our business coach the previous day about what our audience wanted from us. And I came up with this idea for a free challenge. And within 2 weeks, we had created the free challenge. The goal was, let's just get 10 people to opt into this, because it was a pretty hefty delivery on our part. So let's just see how this free thing would work if we could deliver it. We wanted 10 people to opt in. We got 16 people to opt in, and it was free. So again, we were making progress, but we still weren't making progress on our financial needs. But in the time that we were delivering that, we were also coming up with, okay, what are we going to offer on the back end of that? And that's where we created this new product called our PR Accelerator. We created it in 2 weeks while we were doing the challenge. And by the end of June, we had 2 people purchase it, which meant $20,000 extra for the month of June. So what was supposed to be not profitable ended up being a really profitable month. And now that product, we've seen over $100,000 worth of sales from that one product alone that we created in those 2 weeks of kind of pressure testing. And that was after something had failed and after our financial advisor was telling us, you're going to have to fire people. And then we got those wins.
Wow. I mean, it really follows the process so well, because it's you had that magic dark period, you had super, super, super tested, then magic dark of crickets, are you going to be able to pull through? Can you get this? Do you have the trust muscle? Do you believe? And I think going back to your core wounds, do you believe that you're smart enough and you belong enough for people to connect with this pitch, this product, whatever it is? And because you had been doing so much unblocking work and, moving through and taking aligned action in real time, that was able to connect with you.
Yes. And in that same time, even though it was June and we're seeing these projections and we're still in our magic dark, we even then still made the choice to hire our next senior person. We trusted enough that we were going to make it work. And we knew we needed this person in order to get ourselves to the next level. And so by the time we had made the offer to this person, we were in a totally different financial spot and confident to offer her the position. But when we were doing the search, we were still okay, we have to figure this out.
One test that you talked about was this moment of enmeshing with one of your other team members' emotional states. Talk about that test, because I think that's a really hard one for a lot of people.
Oh my gosh, I don't think I've even told her this story, but this is with my business partner, Caitlin. Again,
outing the shadow.
Yeah. I am a recovering, people pleaser. And going back to my relationship with my biological dad, I always felt like it was my role and my job to take care of his emotional needs. And so when I'm at my lowest, I think that I can do that with other people too. When I'm in more of a scarcity state or when I'm in a fear state, I tend to default to, okay, let me make sure that everyone's emotions around me are okay before I can be okay. And so it was during the unblocking challenge, and I had done a DI that morning, which to this day is still the deepest healing I've had so far. It was the deepest DI I've ever done. And it was around the work with my stepfather, actually. And I finally came to this really deep, beautiful healing about my relationship with him and about how I really belong to him. And it was something that I needed to come to on my own. And it had been for a long time coming, and I hadn't really gotten there.
What DI was it?
It was that you had just released the Unblocked DI.
Okay, I knew it. I had a feeling. That's a good one.
Yeah, and I had done, I'd done my hike that morning. I had done my journaling, and then I got into that DI, and it was the most healing I've had. I remember, I think I even wrote in my journal, like, I am not wrong. Cause I think I always used to default to I am not wrong. And I wrote in my journal, I am not wrong. I belong. I am loved. I belong to this person, and I had this deep healing with that relationship. So I went into my day like, yes, this is going to be a great day. And then Caitlin, and oh gosh, when she's listening, this is going to be embarrassing, but she came into the day and she just wasn't in a good space. I could tell. And who knows why, right? Like she was just having her own stuff, her own things were coming up. And I could tell that emotionally, she just wasn't feeling it that day. And I like tailspun. I was like, what did I do? Is it my fault? And I started just spiraling into how can I make her emotions okay? Because ultimately it came down to me not being comfortable with her emotions. And in the past, what I would do in that situation is like check in with her. Hey, how you doing? And try to tie her up in a bow, her emotions, like smooth her over so that I could feel okay. But I didn't do that because I could see what I was doing. And I'm like, no, she's allowed to have her emotions. She's allowed to feel this way. And I had to remind myself it's not about me, which is hard because I always think when something's wrong that it's my fault or that it's about me. And so I resisted the urge to smooth it over. But the whole day I was kind of in a tailspin, and it felt like a failure of a test that day because her emotions were impacting me and I couldn't just let them slide off. It was hard for me. So what started as a really great, beautiful day ended as me feeling kind of just icky, right? Mm-hmm. But then the next day I had journaled that night, and the next day I kind of signed back on and it was a new day. And we had a meeting that morning that just so happened to be that morning. And she signed on. She's like, oh, it's such a hard day yesterday. And she just started telling me about like what she was frustrated with and what was going on in her life. And I was like, yeah, it's not me. Also, it's not my job to smooth over her bad day, right? That's her bad day. She's allowed to have that and work through that. And when she comes to me and tells me about it, I can be there for her and support her, but I don't have to until she's ready for me to.
This is so, so important. I deeply resonate with that exact story. It's happened many times because, especially if you're a people pleaser, if you've been enmeshed to the emotional needs of your parents, anything like that, you will see their bad mood as something that you need to go and fix. Like, they're not allowed to have that, or it must be something I did. I need to go and make sure I'm safe. Everything's okay.
Yeah.
And I love that you said, I felt like a failure because I had a big emotional reaction. I actually think you passed the test because you didn't go to her and try to fix or figure out what was wrong or anything like that. You said, okay, I am having a big emotional reaction to her emotions. I want to go fix. That's what I would do in the past. But I'm going to go and do the opposite. I'm going to just sit with and process my emotions and reassure myself that it's not my job to handle her emotions, that she's capable of doing that, and just sit with the discomfort. And that is actually passing the test.
Yeah. And I think I did feel that the next day. I felt like, okay, I actually did, I think, get through that. That moment was actually an expander for me too, and that I don't have to take care of people's needs anymore. My inner child doesn't have to take care of anyone because I'm now in a place where I'm safe and I am in relationships with people that I am safe with and that will come to me when they need me, but that won't rely on me to make everything okay for them.
Yeah. And even, this is why like our core wounds tie into so many aspects of our life, because think about that mentality of like, oh no, I have to fix every single issue, or it's my fault every single issue. If that belief is down there, that's what's projecting out to your business, to your products, all across the board. And so when you can sit back and be like, okay, like there might be something wrong, but if it's an issue I need to work on or look at, someone will come to me and we'll troubleshoot and we'll figure it out. And I'm capable of doing that.
Exactly.
So powerful. And I love that the unblocking, I think it's so cool that you had that healing unblocking moment with your biological dad. And immediately the universe was like, are you sure you don't want to do this anymore?
Yeah.
Did you really heal? Do you want to get tested one more time just to make sure it really stuck? And you passed the test.
Yeah, right. Are you really sure? And yeah, and that was with my stepdad too, which is, I think, even more important because it's my stepdad where that was really the wound, I think, that was still front and center. Like the stuff with my biological dad is good. Like I'm good with that. Like I can move past that, but it was still like right there with my stepdad. I needed to feel like his child and he couldn't do that for me. I needed to feel that for me. But then the universe was like, okay, you really feel it? Here you go. Here it is.
Yes, like take the action in real life to show that that neural pathway, that limiting belief is not the default anymore.
Yes.
So cool. Okay, so you're a mom and you have a family and a business, a thriving businesswoman. How do you fit in this work? That is a huge question we get a lot.
I am not someone who identifies with going all in and being really intense. I'm not super rigid. I tend to be more fluid and flowy and kind of just feel my way through what I need every day. And so for many, many years with this work, I just dipped my toes in. And it started with Lacey's blog. Like I'd read her blog and, okay, I'd read it every day, but other than that, I wasn't really doing much else. And then she released a course and I bought it and I did a couple things and then I let it go for a while. And then I came back and finished it. And I've always been kind of one of those people that flow through it in and out. Then the more that I started doing it, the more I want to say I didn't even have to take an action anymore to stay committed to it because I just worked my way into being committed to it. But it was years of not doing it the quote unquote right way. It was years of doing it before I fell asleep. Like I think 2019, 2020, I was doing it mostly at night and I fell asleep half the time. And it wasn't until about 2021 that I started to manifest more space in my days that has allowed me to put this work first. And now for me, I drop my daughter off my husband. So we've set it up where my husband drops my daughter off in the morning to daycare. And that way I have my morning to go for my walk and then come back and journal and do my DI. And I have, a little bit of shadow around the fact that I actually don't start my workday now until 10 o'clock. And sometimes I feel guilty that my daughter goes to school while I do my inner work. But anytime I feel that guilt coming in, I remind myself that I'm doing this work for me so that I can show up more for her. So I ask for help from my husband, from our daycare provider, and then also from my team. They know that I don't start until a little bit later because I'm doing my DIs first.
And even thinking about being regular with the practice and knowing that you need to do a self-care routine for you to show up your best, that is that shifting of that belief system. Your belief system from like, oh, I don't belong, other people know what's best for me. That's that I'm not in the driver's seat of my life. I'm just kind of bopping around versus the I belong, I'm worthy, and I'm so clear on what I need. So I'm going to give myself that.
Yeah, that's exactly it. And also shifting the belief of what work is. Like I said, I came up with that idea that's now made us over 6 figures while I was doing my morning hike. And so that might not look like work, but that is 100% work. Every morning when I'm walking, I'm thinking in my mind and creating and thinking about my business and my team and my family and what everyone needs and how we can best show up for our audience and for our team every day. And so work doesn't always mean sitting behind the desk, sitting behind the computer. It can mean a lot of different things.
That is going to give a lot of people a lot of licensing and freedom and feeling seen in their work out there, 100%.
I hope so.
And then talk about creating your list of fears tied to each manifestation. I think this is such a genius exercise. I love it.
Yeah, I did this in the summer. I think I was coming up with a lot of things in the summer for the TBM work because we're in that kind of pressure cooker magic dark time where everything felt scary. And so I really was doubling down on everything that I was doing with the TBM work to help me be in my trust and be in alignment. And so I had a big manifestation list, as we've shared. And I looked at it and, with the TBM work, I know that you and Lacey always talk about your manifestations are on the other side of your fears. So I went through item by item, looked at my list, and I wrote down everything that I'm afraid of for each thing on my list. So for 7 figures, what am I afraid of if we hit 7 figures? What am I afraid of if we don't? What could stepping through fear look like to get that? It could look like hiring this person, even though I'm being told I shouldn't. It could look like putting out this new product, even though I'm afraid it'll fail again. It could look like admitting that we didn't hit our goals and having to face what that means. Like I went through point by point, what could every stepping through fear action look like for each one of my manifestations?
I think that's so genius because when we think about blocks, Lacey says it's literally a limiting belief that is pushing away your manifestation from connecting with you. Your deep-rooted fears are actually things that are trying to keep you quote unquote safe based off of your old belief system. So if you think about stepping through fears, it's stepping through fears of not relying on those limiting beliefs as what safety equates to. And so it's like, okay, what am I scared of to step through? It's like, no, maybe you haven't hired this new person before when you're at this financial level, but everything in your gut and the expansion that maybe you self-expanded or have seen others expand in, this is so necessary for the business to take the next step. I believe that I'm worthy of it. And even though my limiting beliefs say that I can't do it, I'm shifting to a brand new belief system. And now that's going to reflect.
Yes, absolutely. That's so smart.
Okay. Any other tips or insights for anyone out there, to the person who felt like they were in your shoes early on, just starting the work, who was confused about their career path, who had some of these similar limiting beliefs or people-pleasing beliefs? You had mentioned too, like you felt like you were late to starting your money journey in life, and you wanted to really figure out what that looked like and have expanders who were hitting their success stride in their 40s, et cetera. For the person who's like, 7 figures from my business feels so far away, I don't even have a business yet, like how is that possible? What's just one note you would share with those people?
We can only manifest to the authenticity that we're at. The physical manifestations, for me, they're layers. I look at it as when I was, in 2015, I was waiting tables and I had like no money in the bank. I had all of these giant ideas of what career business looked like, but I wasn't there yet. I couldn't get there, but what I could do was take one step forward into my authenticity. So the physical manifestations are just guide marks and guideposts showing us the level of authenticity that we're at right now. So start where you're at and don't worry about trying to get to those 7 figures if you haven't even started your business yet. I tend to be a really big picture thinker. And so I always used to look really far ahead in the future. And yet I think if you can bring it back into a smaller circle, into yourself and think, what is it that's right in front of me right now that will be most aligned with my authenticity in this moment? What is one action that I can take today? What is one thing that I can do to heal a little part of myself today? And as you keep layering that and you keep manifesting bigger and bigger things. And so the physical manifestations are just those markers to show you where you're going to go next.
Yeah, absolutely. And I love how you put that too. The physical manifestations are a representative of where your authenticity is at in this moment.
I think so. And start small and keep going. And it doesn't have to be perfect. It doesn't have to look like my journey or Jessica's journey or Lacey's journey. It just has to look like what you need right now in this moment. And maybe what you need is not perfect. Maybe you just need to listen to 2 minutes of a DI. And that's all that you have capacity to take in today. And that's okay, because the more that you can do that and the more that you can stay consistent and committed to understanding yourself and your authenticity, the further you'll be able to go in this journey and the bigger you'll be able to manifest.
Thank you so much, Holly. This was such an expansive conversation. What are you manifesting in 2023?
Oh, we're going for 2.3 million in the business.
Yes, let's go.
Yes, and I think we're going to do it. I have high hopes that we're going to get there. We always do. And profitability now is going to be the big thing because, yeah, we hit 7 figures, but it was a lot of work. And so we're trying to get to our next million with a little bit more ease and a little bit more support. We've got a big team now, and, we're going into that with a lot of confidence, and I'm really excited. So that's partly what's on the list, but just more connection with the people around me and with myself, and ease.
Love that. One thing I'm just thinking too, I can hear someone out there being like, okay, 2.3 million, the number. What do you think that will bring you, just to show people the core essence beneath these material manifestations?
Oh, that's such a good point, because as I put out these big figures, that's not what I'm manifesting. What I'm manifesting is more freedom, more space. I'm manifesting a career that shows my inner child that she can be powerful, that shows my inner child that she can be a leader, that she can be seen, and that's okay. I'm manifesting a business that is supporting other people too, and is a community for everyone who has felt unheard, unseen, unrepresented. So for me, that number is big, but it's not about the physical thing. It's about the feeling of safety and security and real leadership, and owning my ambition and owning the fact that, yeah, it's okay. I actually do want to be big. I actually do want to be a big career person. So having those goals makes me feel like that big career person, even if I don't hit that. It's that I'm setting those goals for myself.
Yes. Oh, love, love, love that. So well said. So powerful.
But we're going to hit it because we do.
Love it. Cheers to many more manifestations in 2023. And thank you so much, Holly. This has been so expansive.
Jessica, the one thing that I want to say too is, so last year on the Manifestation Challenge, I was looking back at what my list was last year, and it was to be seen and heard. And I wanted to have more speaking opportunities, which of course we have this podcast, and I just did another big podcast that will be released next week. And so there's that. And then I wanted a more expansive business community, and I wanted to be around other 7 and 8 figure business owners, which is funny because now as we're recording this, I'm in Miami with 7 and 8 figure business owners, all women leaders growing their businesses, and talking to you, and it just couldn't feel more aligned.
So full circle. It almost makes me teary-eyed because I just want people listening to know it is so possible to connect with the things that you desire. Put in the work and it will come to fruition. I promise.
It is so possible. I feel like if I can do it, everyone can.
Yes.
Thank you so much, Jessica. This was wonderful to talk to you.
Thank you.
Thank you so much for tuning into the episode, and I hope you enjoyed it as much as I did, we did. And in case you're not totally ready to join the pathway yet, I wanted to share a few of our free offerings that I'll often suggest to people as a little bit of a blueprint to get them started on their manifestation journey. The first place I like to direct people completely for free is the motivation. You can see it linked below or on our homepage as our testimony library. And it's categorized by different subjects, whether you're calling in career, money, love, wellness, and much more. When you're reading about a member's experience of what they manifested, you're actually seeing to believe and showing your subconscious that that very thing is possible for you. The second place I like to direct people is to the free clarity exercise, which is also linked below. In it, you get to try our own unique hypnosis process, learn about the science, and some journaling prompts. And the best part about this, you'll get a tiny taste of what it's like to go into your hypnotic state, bring your subconscious forward, and create new neural pathways while receiving clarity. And the third thing, if you haven't listened to it on this podcast yet, please go back to the episode titled Manifestation 101, where you'll learn the basics of neural manifestation to truly understand this process. So go ahead and check out those free resources, the motivation, the free clarity exercise, and the episode Manifestation 101, all linked below. And in an effort to make sure to have representation in this process series, go ahead and submit any process testimonials you have, especially to our LGBTQ+ community, our BIPOC, as well as the Ys, which is anyone in the community who is 45 and over. All right, we'll be back next week.